Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. In an effort to prevent misinformation from swaying voter preference, the Commission on Elections issued a resolution tightening regulations for surveys. Under the proposed rules, registration will be a requirement for survey firms before conducting their polls and disseminating the results. Full disclosure is also a must, including the identities of respondents and penalties for non-compliance, which include fines, suspension of accreditation, and even legal action. But after an initial meeting with survey firms, the poll body says it's willing to revise the rules. Let's get on point with Cleve, Arguelles of WR Numero, and also we will be joined by OCTA Research Fellow Professor Guido David. Cleve, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too, Pink.
All right, so you, together with Professor David and others, met with the Comelec the other day because of this resolution 11117, basically mandating survey firms to register with the Comelec. When you got there, what happened?
Yes, I think first I would like to say that this resolution came as a surprise to us at WR Numero, and I think also to our other colleagues in the polling industry, because there were no prior consultation, there were no discussions with any members of the Comelec or manifestations that they are interested in issuing such guidelines, right? So when we got in there, we actually had no idea what to expect, right?
Yeah.
So we were just invited to show up on that day for a meeting with Comelec. One of my first observations is that pagpasok namin, they've prepared for us to sign a commitment, a declaration that these survey firms present in that conversation agree to some of the things that they're proposing in the guidelines. No, but
That's odd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and
so pagdating niyo po doon, you never knew what was part of the resolution, right? You found out what was in the resolution when you got there. Am I correct?
We actually got a copy of the resolution from friends in the media. So we were never really formally issued a copy of the guidelines, or and then not also the statement that we're supposed to sign. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So what were you supposed to sign again?
That
you were in agreement with some of the provisions of the resolution?
Yeah, so parang it's a long statement.
That you were not given a copy of?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, sorry. So carry on. So
yes.
When you got there, so did you sign this supposed, you agree in some of the some provisions of the resolutions?
Yes,
you guys signed it?
Yeah. We did, but we edited it. We amended the statement, the declaration, and WR Numero signed with reservations. I think our other colleagues as well signed with reservations, and we've made it clear to the commission what our reservations are.
Okay, I'm sure OCTA also had their reservations, and we will be joined by Professor Guido David. So we'll pause for a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On Point. Still with us, Cleve, Arguelles of WR Numero, and joining our discussion also Professor Guido David of OCTA Research. Professor David,
hi.
I see you in person, sir, because we always used to just talk to each other over Zoom.
Right, but you look as good in person
Thank
over
you.
Zoom.
So, Professor, tell us, I was talking to Cleve earlier about what happened. Ano ba nangyari pagdating nyo dun sa Comelec? Did you have a lot of reservations? Dinereview ba kayo pagdating nyo dun? Was it news blackout for you guys? You didn't know what you were getting into?
I didn't know what I was getting into. It was, I thought actually Professor Ranjit, who's the president of OCTA, was the only one who would be attending, and then at the last minute he said, "Oh, you should come also." I said, "Okay," and then it's the first time to see all these survey firms in one room. Which I've met Cleve before, but the others, like Malu Tikia, never met her personally before. So there were these other survey companies there. So I guess there was some tension. A lot of us didn't really know what to expect. I mean, we had, I believe we got a copy of at least their proposed
But not officially.
Not officially.
Well, according to Cleve. Baka hindi kayo binigyan?
We got a copy from our
From
friends
the
in the
media.
media.
What about OCTA?
I believe Ranjit got a copy. He showed it to me, and he was,
Unhappy with some of the
there was
provisions?
maybe we did have some reservations. Professor Ranjit did, because there were some items there which were not clear to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those. So those that were unclear. Let's start with Cleve. What section is this? Section 2 ba to?
Yes.
Umpisahan na natin sa section 2.
Yeah.
We have a graphics of that, so we can at least show it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think for us, for example, our biggest concern is that if you look at the guidelines on what they want us to disclose, most of us, especially WR Numero, OCTA, and others, have already been disclosing those details, and we do. That's part of our standard practice, right? The methodological details. It's included in our press releases. It's included in our public reports, and we discuss it in all of our briefings, right? The question now is because for the commission, they're trying to solve or at least respond to the problem of the misinformation, right? Fake election surveys and propaganda. But we're not sure how that registering with Comelec and them being mandating us to disclose or to comply, right, on certain reporting obligations, how that would solve the misinformation. From the perspective of the commission, they are trying to create a registry of those survey firms willing to register with them, and hopefully that would mean that
You become credible.
yes, right.
Yeah.
But that won't stop other fly-by-night or even just outright disinformation.
But they won't be registered with a Comelec if they're fly-by-nights, right?
Yes, and the registration, I think, is it's the provision in the regulation guidelines that is meeting the least opposition from us, I would say.
The registration,
yes, because
okay.
registration is okay, right? But the others, especially the disclosure methodology, we're already doing that. One of the most contentious, I think, from our perspective as well, is that they want some access to our raw data. They want to see the actual raw numbers, right? And of course, there are many concerns about this. One is data privacy. We go to specific barangays. If you see, even without the names, if you know the barangays and you know kind of like the demographic background of that particular survey respondent, it's not hard to locate those people. So there's a data privacy concern, but there's also other concerns because the survey results are the raw data is at the backbone of our intellectual outputs.
But when you actually look at data and you, what is the right word, calculate or come up with the numbers, would that differ for every survey firm, or is there a trade secret from one firm to another, or is it basically the same?
Well, the general statistics should be about the same, at least the approach. Now, there will be differences in the mode of the survey. Some do panel surveys and some do face-to-face surveys. And even the face-to-face surveys, there may be some minute differences in the way the sampling is done. But generally, at least for us, we follow industry standards. And when we talk about industry standards, I mean, there's basically two players in the industry which have defined the standards, and I think
you can identify them,
right? Everybody knows them. SWS.
Do you want me to do it on Pulse Asia?
And Pulse
Okay.
Asia, and in fact, SWS mentioned that they're 40 years old. So they have defined the industry in the Philippines. We can't deny that.
So what is it really, in particular, that Professor Ranjit or OCTA had reservations with regards to Resolution 1117?
Well, there's the part, firstly, that it's mandatory. and that if there's no failure to comply may result in penalties. And it now starts to look like a regulatory board or body wherein you have to comply or else there will be consequences. So I think that was part of the negotiations to make it not mandatory, but at least possibly voluntary. And if people want to register with the Comelec, then the advantages they'll get this badge. That was what they were saying.
A badge.
A badge,
okay.
a Comelec badge. That hey, basically we've looked at this.
Authentic
group.
ito, parang a badge in social media accounts, parang ganun.
Right, like a blue check mark or something like that.
But that's the thing. If it becomes, let's take out the badge. If it becomes just voluntary, then doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose of what it was supposed to be for? Wasn't the idea so that you have the credible firms register, and so that these credible firms are the ones that can disseminate the information to the public because they are credible? So if it becomes voluntary, then doesn't it defeat the purpose?
I guess if you go back to the mandatory version, one of the challenges as well is that the registration with Comelec, although it's mandatory, it's a bit of a ministerial work on their part. You disclose, you report, and that's it. So that means that even if polling organizations with questionable, for example, methodology, if they register and submit all the reports needed, then they can register with the Comelec.
But it gives the Comelec the power or the authority to look into these, let's call it, bogus firms, di ba? Matatakot ngayon sila.
Well, I think for bogus firms, essentially they can't really force these bogus firms to register. They can still put out their fake news and fake survey results, because when I've seen fake OCTA research surveys, and we can't even trace where they came from. So how can you come after them if you don't know?
That's why there were a lot of fact checking, even with OCTA, right?
Right.
On what's come out. So, but are you for mandatory versus voluntary? Even if it was voluntary, I guess my question is, does that solve anything, Professor Guido?
Well, of course, we
Is
look
the
at...
badge going to do anything?
I'm not really sure, because, of course, we're looking at the intent of Comelec. And again, as mentioned by Professor Cleve, it's to sort of prevent disinformation and malinformation. And by doing so, at least they can sort of say that this survey result that came out is legitimate. Now, one of the contentions is whether to report the person who funded the survey. But that was the intent of Comelec, to say that, okay, this, just like for a print ad, for example, this ad was sponsored by this so-and-so politician, or if it's not a politician, it was sponsored or funded by this private organization. So there will be some sort of accountability, at least, as far as that. So, some might have problems with disclosing the sponsor, right?
Yeah.
But personally, we don't really have.
You don't have a problem with that. What about WR Numero?
We don't. It should be standard practice. We think that
You should be transparent about that.
Yes.
No?
When a survey is commissioned and you publish that survey, then the sponsoring organization or individual should be named.
Yeah.
I think the other provision of the proposal of the Comelec is to also even those who just subscribe to your survey reports must also be named. Kind of like those who are buying if it's a magazine, right? If it's a report, they also want that reported. And for example, we think that that's unnecessary, right?
Why?
Because if the assumption is that we want it to not unduly influence public perceptions, right? And therefore, if it's commissioned, you have to put it out there. If you're not publishing it, right? If you're just circulating it to those sponsors, then what's the necessity to also give Comelec the names of those sponsors? I think on a principle level, of course there are contentious provisions, but at the level of the principle, polling organizations like WR Numero, we see our work as integral to freedom of expression. And freedom of speech, for example. And that means that while we recognize the authority of the Comelec to regulate election conduct, right, as part of the Fair Elections Act, right, as a principle as well, we jealously guard our freedom of speech, right? And if there's overriding public interest and there is, it will solve some of really big public issues, like for example, misinformation. But as it's designed so far, we have concerns whether it will really solve that problem. Yeah, because anyone can still publish their election survey. So
yeah, that's why I go back to my previous question. So sabihin po natin, it ends up to be voluntary. It doesn't. That's why I asked that question. Does that solve the problem the resolution was intended to do? The resolution was, survey firms, register with us so we know you're credible, so that you can disseminate the information to the public on the surveys that you were conducting, whether commissioned or non-commissioned. But if it does not become mandatory, if it is just voluntary, edi yun lang ang makukuha namin or makukuha po ng publiko sa inyo. Yung check, yung badge na galing pong Comelec. Parang ganun eh. Yeah. That's how I understand it. All right, so some of the controversies would be data privacy, definitely, because OCTA doesn't, WR Numero doesn't, SWS or Pulse Asia, they don't say, ang in-interview po namin, we interviewed 1,800 respondents with a marginal error of plus minus 3%, right? But they don't say, I interviewed Pinky Webb of so-and-so,
exactly.
Diba? Hindi pwede. Did Comelec want the names and identities of those respondents as well?
Initially, that was our impression because they wanted the raw data. They wanted the questionnaire. And those were some of the reservations because, I mean, although we are happy to cooperate and, to register and provide as much information as possible, only up to the extent where, once our business or, well, I mean, we're a nonprofit, but once our operations become sort of jeopardized by sharing certain information, then it becomes sort of, a problem.
Yeah.
It becomes problematic. So I think they retracted that, if that was the...
Okay, so that was retracted.
So yes, I believe that's no longer on the table, getting the raw data.
Okay.
So if it's just margin of error and number of respondents, we have
Face-to-face,
right. We have that information anyway. So we're
Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao.
Right. We're happy to provide that information.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We just need to take another short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching On Point, still with us. WR Numero Uno's Cleve, Arguelles, and OCTA Research Fellow Professor Guido David. Are you also Professor Cleve?
I also teach.
Oh, okay, professors. Okay. So let's end this discussion with just this part of the discussion. What is the status now of this resolution of the Comelec?
The promise of the Commission is that they will issue an amended guideline reflecting the discussion points and the agreements that we've had with them in our meeting, and that there will be another opportunity for consultation. So I think that because also this was released by the Commission as the campaign season is already ongoing, I think this is the right step, that they take it step by step, I think. So now we start with the promise is that we will be starting with this voluntary. I think it's a developing conversation, and polling organizations like us, it's also in our interests that those fly-by-nights, right?
Yeah, because we need to know who we can trust among the survey firms. So another meeting will happen.
We believe that that's the promise. So the session actually ended with us signing this sort of agreement, right? But it's like a tentative agreement. it's like a provisional agreement that there will be another meeting with revised amendments or
So please sign this first.
Right.
And then we will meet again face to face. Ilan ba yung respondents dun sa meeting ninyo? Ilan ba
I'm
kayo?
not sure. Wait, I think more than 10, sir.
More than 10.
Maybe,
All
yeah,
right.
some private.
May mga
Okay.
we had
Yeah.
to strike out some parts of the statement.
this is really
live.
this is really important because of misinformation or disinformation, and that's so people know which firms they can or should trust. Because sometimes there are just polls that come out, and even OCTA, as mentioned by Professor Guido, has been a victim of fake news. Okay, let's talk about both groups, both companies, because when WR Numero came out recently with your survey on the impeachment, basically it said that about half of the Filipinos did not agree that the vice president should be impeached. That's the correct number. Was it 47%?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
47% against 33%
Yes.
who said that she should be impeached. There were some congressmen quite dissatisfied or doubtful, I guess, of that survey. Who is WR Numero? How long have you been in operation?
Yes. So we understand that we will always get mixed reactions when we release public opinion data. I think that comes with the role of doing public opinion research. Because if you ask something about impeachment, it's going to just be showing either supporting one camp or the other. It's not going to show something that would make everyone happy, right? But I think that's why public opinion research is important, and that's our mission at WR Numero, because conversations can get partisan, conversations can get polarizing, right? What we bring to the table is that we tell the people that, okay, we've done this nationwide survey, and based on this nationwide survey, these are what Filipinos are thinking about this very important issue. It's not a definitive take on the impeachment. I think I've read some of the statement made by the members of the House that it should not replace the judgment of our senator judges. I agree, but it's a very important part of public conversation because impeachment is a public and political process.
So who is WR Numero? How long have you been in existence?
Yes, so we were founded in 2020. Our founder is Dr. Robin Michael Garcia, who is now with the Ateneo School of Government, an associate professor at the Ateneo School of Government. I am currently the president and CEO of WR Numero.
I see.
And so the mission of our firm is really to enrich this polling industry, right? So we come from an academic background. Robin and I are the founder, met in an academic seminar.
Okay.
So that's really how we
right.
got to start thinking about this, right? What do we think can we offer still on the political, on the public opinion stage, right? For example, we've recognized our pioneers here, like SWS, who has established itself as a reliable polling organization, and one of their major kind of like innovations is this measure on poverty, self-rated poverty, right? So they're kind of like they have developed this public opinion data on socio-economic issues, and very, very useful. As a researcher, I use them a lot, right? So we thought that what WR Numero will do is to focus on socio-political attitudes rather than socio-economic issues, right?
Sorry, so what does WR stand for? Did I miss it?
Yes, WR is Warwick and Roger. The Warwick stands for the Warwick School of International Relations, kind of like the inspiration of Robin in terms of like scholarly background. Roger is the name of his father.
I see. All right. We have just a minute left, no?
Yeah.
OCTA. Of course, I know OCTA. Very prominent during the COVID crisis. But Professor Guido, go ahead. Who are you and when did you begin?
Well, we actually started just before COVID, around 2018, 2019. And we were established as a polling organization, nonprofit. It just so happened that during the pandemic struck, and we had nothing to do, so we started doing research, and we have some fellows who are medical doctors who assisted. So we kind of pitched in as a public service. And I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, we became associated with COVID, with the pandemic. But the reality is that we're actually a polling organization. So a lot of people were surprised back in 2021 when we started pivoting to surveys, and they're saying, "Wait, we trusted you because of COVID, and now you're asking us to trust you for." I'm a data scientist, so it's just my job to look at numbers and data, and that's all it is to me.
Okay, do you have anything coming up soon, OCTA?
Well, we're running more frequent surveys now, so definitely we'll be giving you a copy of what we release. It will be subject to the board approval.
Anything on impeachment?
I can't say yet because I'm not given authority to talk about it.
Okay, to me that means yes. Professor Cleve Arguelles, thank you so much for your time. And Professor Guido David, good to see you, sir. Maraming salamat po sa inyong dalawa. Happy weekend! And that's On Point. Join us again next week at 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.